Oh dear, appears that I have been very off schedule. I can't really give an excuse other than if I had to choose something. This was on the days coming up to my uni interview, which the closer it came, the more it started digging into me that this is going to mean a lot for my future. So, frankly, that was kind of getting to me slightly. Um, so the uni interview's done. That was Wednesday, earlier this week. Um, as you've noticed, I'm still using my webcam on my laptop, the built-in one. But that's well, I already mentioned before. The reason for this is still I have not done with editing the New York trip, which I mentioned I'm only halfway through with. So I, I've mentioned this before. As soon as that's finished, I will get it out there. So I should probably update goes with updates this vlog series with what I've been doing. Um, I've been doing well. See, what did I show off last? I showed off the drawings I did. I've made a little bit of a start on the actual 3D model, which is nice. I need to stop this from shaking as much. So what I've done is I loaded up Cinema 4D. It has plenty of shapes which I can load up. One of them being a mannequin, which it's all just one piece, so I can't even move that. But what I've been doing is loading up other shapes and putting them on top of the mannequin in very separate bits. So I've got foreleg, lower leg. I've got chest to stomach to waist. Got the head, of course, the arms and fingers, and I even halved the hand. Because if you look at the palm of my hand, it bends like that. Just around here where my thumb's going over. That's like a separate kind of hinge to the palm. Anyway, so that's something I've been working on. As well as that, I've still been doing some research on the side. I got an email back from one of the experts that I did get in contact with. So I mentioned I sent an email to Prosthetics in Motion in America. Nothing back. Rather annoyed at that, to be frank, but I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. I'm going to send another email as well as another to a couple of other places. But I sent another email to a gun law expert about would there be any specific kinds of controversy or maybe Geneva recognition or whatever if somebody what would gun laws be like being applied to a person who's got their arm replaced with a weapon. And he gave a very straightforward answer. If it's a gun, it abides gun laws. So I've got that. I'm not going to put it on my blog just yet because I just recalled a question I forgot to ask, which I have sent him an email on, which I thought was very interesting to bring up, and that is, if a new weapon is invented, in my case, a plasma weapon, what process would it have to go through in order for it to be recognised as a weapon? So when it gets back to me on that, I'll be putting those emails into a blog, and it'll go up there. It'll be very easy. Now, something I haven't actually done before is Harvard reference. I remember years ago I tried to do it once with websites, and I just found it way too difficult. I did not enjoy it. I don't know why. I was probably just given an overly complicated way of doing it. But recently, our tutor did take us up to the college library, which I wasn't planning on visiting anyway. I usually just get everything off the internet. Usually, I either work from usually just articles on the internet, which I don't even do that often, or mostly YouTube videos because it's explain a lot more. Um, that and if it's got what I'm looking for, not only is it going to tell you that, but if it's a reasonably popular YouTuber, it has a personality behind it, which usually, in my case and sometimes other people's cases, makes it easier to absorb that information. So that's that's usually how I do it. Anyway, we went to the library. It's me, Tutor, and some other people, and I dug around and I found two rather large books, which are by my bed now. Um, the first one is just a book on advanced physics, and it has a small section on plasma, or more specifically nuclear fusion, and how the sun uses this method to create more plasma for itself and keep itself hot. I scanned that. That's already up on the blog by the time I have, by the time I'm recording this. Same thing with half of the second book that I had Harvard reference, and it's a book on modern welding. And the reason I picked out that is because this book, which I'm very happy with, it has multiple pages on plasma torch cutting. So the machines themselves that create plasma. So I've scanned all this in. There were so many pages in the that was my knee in the book that had stuff to do with plasma torch cutters and welders, and it showed off diagrams of the machine and different variations of it. So there'd be the regular, then there'd be the automatic, and there'd be one that's submerged in water just to keep it quiet, and another one that still uses water but to sort of reduce the diameter just to keep it more precise by cutting it off from everything around it. So it's just one long shot of plasma, plasma cutter. So the first half of that book's up there, and the second half is I'm currently working on the second half. As well as that, I'll do this on Tuesday because I'll be back at college to be able to do this. I'm gonna bring that comic book in to do with cyborgs. To do Cyborg, it's a cyborg DC comic, and I'll have another read of it today, and I'll see how much of it I can apply. But I'll also have to include stuff which won't even be that applicable, but stuff I'd find interesting anyway. Not only that, I would of course have to Harvard reference it, so that's going to be fun, because I don't think a comic book is going to have details as readily available to me on the book than these other textbooks that I have picked out of the library. What else is there? Talk about that uni interview. Okay, so annoyingly, the day before, I'd missed 2 buses and I had to take a taxi to the destination of the second bus, which is on a different route, because my dad had already gone there, because I was taking a long time printing stuff out for that interview, and it was the 3D models of the cyborg animals I made for my FMP the year prior. So that actually does look quite good. I'll stick them onto, as usual, my website address will be in the description. So I'm going to stick it into my gallery, which is a DeviantArt account, because I'm not the person that usually sticks stuff onto DeviantArt. I just use it because it's much easier than building a gallery on my website, which takes a long time. What else is there? So the actual uni interview was odd. Ultimately, just to make it easier and not have any drama or anything, I have been given an offer. I just need to get the right points and whatnot by finishing with a really good grade on this FMP. Yeah, that lets me in. But the interview really, it got to me. Frankly, it kind of crushed me by the end of it. But I, of course, recovered from that the same evening because I kind of work like that. I can bounce back, just give me some time. And what happened was, I'm gonna be very open with this. And if the tutors that were at that interview, which of course is going to be tutoring me, see this, just let it be known, these are only first impressions. I have not had time to become more familiar with how they work or their personalities or anything. These are just purely what I thought. And plus I'm Asperger's, so it's high functioning. I usually overthink things, so whatever it say, do not take it to heart. It's probably not even true, frankly. So I was taken up to the office by one of the two tutors who was older, and he just seemed more professional. It seemed like he's had more experience doing what he's doing, and he took me up to their office, and there were two desks in there. One desk was of course his, because the other desk not only had somebody behind it, but the desk with somebody behind it was also just covered, completely surrounded by figurines from doing video games, comic book franchises, Funko Pop. Clearly he's in a job which funds his own fanboyism quite a bit, and that was the thing. Unfortunately, only one of them, which is the first one I described, actually came across as a real, well, more professional. I know that. Oh, sorry. The course I'm applying for is computer games art, which I accidentally kept calling design, which I think got to the other one. I'll call him first tutor, second tutor. You know who the first tutor is? He's the first one I described. So of course, going under normal stereotypes or circumstances, the first tutor looks more professional and like a tutor. The second, although he looks like quite a fanboy, as I had already described him as, he considering the course I was applying for, he did seem like to some degree an expert at that as well. So it wasn't really incredibly fair of me to only call him a fanboy when the job he has is affiliated to those kind of stereotypes anyway. So he fits either way. If it wasn't for his job, he would just you get the point. Anyway, he was sitting at his desk. I was taken over to a table, so I put down my portfolio. I opened everything up, and the first tutor, he was looking through my stuff and just asked me to talk about my work and why I want to be on this course. And whilst I was talking, the first tutor motioned to the second tutor sitting down to have a look. I felt like he saw something in it. Felt like he was intrigued by my drawings. Now, bear in mind that when I draw, I am not at all realistic. I don't do even anime, or I was brought up with things like Ed, Edd n Eddy, SpongeBob, just cartoons in general. Nothing super realistic. Always cartoony and stupid and fun, mostly. Absurd. So, if I'd made a video game, it would always have an art style that might be similar to any of Nintendo's stuff. Not to their quality, of course, but just fun characters. Maybe somebody dopey or a stereotype or anything like that. The point I'm making is not realistic or accurately represented by the real world. Which, to me, from what I already saw by the second tutor's figurines, was confliction, because his figurines were of franchises with very realistic designs. Assassin's Creed, any DC or Marvel character you could think of. I didn't have enough time to accurately pay attention to his figurines. I just saw them, and of course I saw very unbulbous headed or strangely proportioned body types. So I saw slim, muscular, didn't really have much time to examine them, but I could tell that they were realistic, and like I said, that's probably conflicted on his opinion of me once he saw the more cartoony drawings I'd made. So he looked at my stuff. He just told me just to keep talking, and I stopped every so often to try and point out some things, such as they opened up my sketch pad and there was some work in there, and I pointed out that some of it was unaffiliated with my college work, and the other is work that I'm currently doing for this project, so that's the reason it wasn't in my A3 portfolio. So, by the end of it, the first tutor had not said a word, and he didn't say a word for the rest of it. I think he said, see you later, or just thank you for coming, and that's about it. But he didn't say anything other than, just don't worry about it when he was taking me up, and he has a very kind tone to his voice, such as, he knows how to talk to people, manners, whatnot. The second tutor was, I don't want to say blunt, because what he said by the end of it didn't seem blunt. It was more suggestive. But it did seem... what's another word for sounding blunt, but not saying anything blunt? Forward, maybe? Harsh? Possibly... No, not harsh either. Probably forward. Yeah, probably forward. I wouldn't say forceful. He didn't force anything on me. Although I kept feeling like I didn't have enough time to explain. Everything was very quick. All this happened in the span of 5 minutes. Tops. And by the end of it, he did say, the second tutor say that he was making a point of the course I was applying for and its success rate. So things 20% of people, succeed and have to be industry ready. Well, it did say something about being industry ready. Either people coming on are people going out are industry ready, which is, of course, I don't see much of a point of saying that. It's exactly what they're meant to do. That's what their jobs are, make their students industry ready. But after seeing my stuff, it sounded like he's making a point that I don't really have a future on that course. He seemed very forward about it. He was being very, like I said, suggestive. He didn't say outright, "You're not right for this course," but it sounded like he's making a point that I'm not really what they're looking for somebody who, I don't know, it's just somebody who's got, all I can really say is better talent. This is all very subjective, what he was suggesting, and which is why it's hard to make a valid observation of what he was saying. So I don't think he meant anything by it, although initially the whole initially I thought he was saying I didn't have a future on this course when he said, when he was talking about industry ready, suggesting that I'm probably too immature. And I use the word immature because of that confliction I mentioned earlier. I do cartoony stuff, he does more realistic stuff, assuming just from the models he had around his desk. Funko Pop is where I, you know, it's, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'll cut a break for the Funko Pop because they're designed in a cartoony way, but of what they are based off is more realistic. That's what I'm saying. Exception, that's it. Funko Pop are the exception. Before that, he did make a point. He did mention something from my personal statement, and that was I put in a quote from one of my old physics teachers from high school, Mr. Arthur, which frankly I do miss. He was a really nice guy, and during, but this was only the first year of high school. He was there for me, but he described me at a parents' evening like I was a boulder. I'm hard to get moving, but once you get me going, I really go. It's hard to stop me, and I was using that as an example of focus. I can really focus once I get into it on something I'm really interested in, and I can work hard at something if I'm focused at it. It sounds the second tutor. It sounded like he was assuming and taking it the wrong way. He was taking it like when I put that in, he was saying that it's not. He didn't take it as a focus sort of metaphor. He took it as a, once you get me going, you can't get me to stop, and you can't influence me at all. Influence is the key word, because he wanted me to be able to be influenced by criticism and opinions, which already said that I could take, because that was the question exactly before he started talking about that part of my personal statement. So either I don't know. I think one of us is, or both. Yeah, I think we're both taking the wrong end of the stick on what's being said and written. But ultimately, it did put me off the way he reacted. But I don't want to come off applying for the course, of course. Especially since I think it was the day after I was talking to my elder sister, Abby, who had gone to the same college, uni, and came out of flying colours, granted on a different course to me, and she did say that her husband, who was, I think, on the same course but at the same uni as her, she said that when he had an interview, they had the same kind of good cop, bad cop sort of scenario, just to see how he would react, and she did describe it as cruel. And all those actually, hello.
Oh, sorry, you're online.
No, I'm recording.
Alright.
Yeah, and all those seem to actually describe what I felt about the interview. It felt like a good cop, bad cop kind of scenario, and it did seem cruel at the time, of course. So hearing that these are tutors from the same uni that she went to, it could just be a tactic that they're all trained to use. It could just be that particular interview, it came out like that because of this tactic, and when I go back, that same tutor's going to be a lot better. I'm going to find him a lot easier to work with. It's going to be just a lot nicer than my initial encounter with him. So that's that's was the interview, and I had the offer. I'll just got to get this FP this project down, and yeah, all right. Oh, that's an update and a half. I'll get back on schedule.